COVID-19 is an unprecedented global health emergency in many ways, but the emergence of the new disease is also part of an alarming pattern. Scientists say the number of new infectious diseases in humans like SARS, MERS, and COVID-19 has risen dramatically over the last decades. A study showed that the number of emerging infectious diseases in humans almost quadrupled between 1940 and 2000. An especially large spike in the 1980s was attributed to diseases linked to the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And there's not just more types of diseases. The number of outbreaks is rising too. In fact, the number of outbreaks of all diseases has roughly tripled since 1980.
If you sat down systematically and counted up the number of new infections that we have identified, it has increased. We continue to see increasing infectious disease outbreaks caused by bacteria or viruses that we did not previously know. We have created the circumstances on Earth that make it likely that this will continue.
So what's causing the rise of new infectious diseases in our world today? And how do humans contribute? The reasons are vary, but they're all intertwined. So let's take a look at some of the main ones. Population size. There are more and more of us on the planet. When the Spanish flu broke out in 1918, there were around 1.8 billion people across the globe. By the 1970s, there were already 3.7 billion of us. In the past 50 years, the global population has more than doubled, and it's projected to grow even further by 2050. More people also means we live closer together, and in some parts of the world, that means very close. This makes human-to-human transmission of viruses easier, and the sheer amount of people makes it more likely that one of us will catch a virus as we spread out on the planet. Human interference with nature. More people have led to an increased need for land and production capacity. The result, a rise in deforestation and land use change worldwide for industrial agriculture, logging and mining, or urbanization. This means humans come into increased contact with wild animals that may carry infectious diseases. Also, natural habitats are destroyed, driving animals into suburban areas where they encounter people and livestock.
It is often the changes in the landscape driven by increases in population that has brought us into closer contact with the viruses that were already present in animals or present in the environment, but we now have created a much larger interface and are much more likely to come into contact with them.
Studies have linked deforestation to increases in malaria infections in the Amazon region and to the outbreak of Ebola in West Africa. But the risks of human interference with nature don't stop there. Human-driven climate change can also contribute to new disease outbreaks. Events like droughts can force wild animals to move away from their habitats, and disease-carrying insects like mosquitoes or ticks living in warmer areas are more likely to spread to new regions as global temperatures rise. Mass consumption of animal products. More people also means we need more food and intensified farming. As average global wealth has increased, so has the consumption of animal products. Though numbers vary by country, the average meat consumption per capita has risen from 23 kilograms per year in 1961 to nearly double that some 50 years later. Higher demand means more mass animal farming, which increasingly looks like this. Animals are squeezed together over long periods of time in an extremely small space. As farming intensifies, so does human-to-animal contact. And transporting these animals internationally elevates the risk of a virus spreading around the world. Global mobility. When it comes to spreading a virus, it's not only goods moving across borders. It's our own movement in a globalized world that plays a central role. COVID-19 is evidence of this, a virus which spread across the globe in a matter of weeks, causing a pandemic and infecting almost 4 million people worldwide. In the past century, growing average wealth and cheaper flights have allowed us to travel more, faster, and easier than ever before. In 2018, over 4 billion passengers boarded flights worldwide. Half a century earlier, in 1970, it was only around 310 million. While at the beginning of the century in 1900, well, the first plane hadn't even lifted off yet.
This is not new in history. I mean, people traveling along the Silk Road in past centuries and ships that carried passengers that had cholera. But the scale and magnitude of travel today, at least until the past few months, is really unmatched in history. And today, one can reach virtually any part of the earth within the incubation period of many infectious diseases.
But it's not all bad news. While the number of diseases is increasing, we are also better equipped to respond to them. In the past century, researchers have developed better tools to detect, research, and develop treatments and vaccines for diseases, making many of them far less deadly, like HIV, or virtually eradicating them, like smallpox.
When I think of HIV/AIDS, I remember when the first cases we were seeing in the hospital, and initially it was a death sentence. Over the years, extremely effective treatment became available, and it is now treated like a chronic disease.
So, on the one hand, things are getting better, but COVID-19 is proof that it is far from over. In a world as it looks today, there is no way around new diseases emerging. We will have to learn to fight them, and the coronavirus pandemic is teaching us how.
I think COVID-19 has had a number of lessons already. One, we need a strong public health system. We also need to continue investment in basic science and in vaccine development, even in the absence of an epidemic. And we need better surveillance systems that integrate information about humans and animals. I am optimistic that we will be able to provide interventions, but it will take time.